today I'm going to talk about some of my manga recommendations, the Shojo edition. So in case you do not know, Shojo is aimed more at like teenage girls, and that is kind of the route that I'm going to go, but I'm also going to loop in some of the women's graphic series as well into this grouping, but most of them actually are Shojo, I believe, on my list. So in case you're not familiar with manga, it is pretty much Japanese graphic novels, Japanese comics, and I tend to like manga a little bit more than American graphic novels just because a lot of times they seem to have a lot more heart and a lot more consistency. This is not always the case. There are a lot of great American graphic novels, but there is something to be said about these manga series that are created by one person or a group of people, and it's consistently created by those people throughout the entire run, and there's something about that consistency that's just really great, and I really end up loving it. I've been reading manga since I was like 14, so for over 10 years now, and I just really enjoy it. And I feel like some people don't always know where to start when it comes to manga, especially when you look at Shojo, because they're so different and there's so much of it that it can be really hard to figure out where to even start and what you might like and what you might not. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about some of my favorite Shojo manga. This is by no means the only favorites that I have. There are many other series that I really enjoy, and I think I will do another video about the other Shojo manga that I love, and I will also do another video with the shonen manga that I love. But I wanted to give you guys a start on some of the Shojo. So with these Shojo, these often have romances in them, but I will give you a little bit of a description for each of the series. So today I will be recommending 7 Shojo manga for you to take a look at in various different subgenres. The first Shojo manga that I'm going to recommend to you is Lovely Complex, also known as Love-Com, by Aya Nakahara. And this series is actually completely contemporary, so if you don't like fantasy or science fiction or all that, this is the one for you. It is about 2 kids in high school, one named Risa Kozumi and the other named Atsushi Otone. And what's funny about them is because their names actually mean small and large, but they're actually reversed. So Risa, the girl, is giant, and she's much taller than most of the girls in her grade. She towers over them. And then there's Otani, who is a guy that is much shorter than the average guy. And it is pretty much about their story as they become friends and their friends start dating, and then slowly they start to kind of have feelings for each other. And it's a really sweet read, and I really enjoyed it. And slight spoiler, but it's one of those things where in many Shojo manga, the couple doesn't get together until the very end, but in this one, it doesn't quite take the whole series, which is really enjoyable. And I just really loved this series. It was one of those series that as soon as I finished reading it, I wanted to pick it up again and start reading it again. It was sweet, it was funny, and I just really enjoyed it. The next manga series that I'm going to recommend is Alice 19th by Yu Watase. And this is a sort of weird retelling of Alice in Wonderland. It's not quite, it is a bit warped, but you do have this girl, and she kind of gets pulled into this different world where there's darkness, and it is kind of like an urban fantasy because much of it is set in our world, but there's this other world that exists that they're often going to and dealing with different problems, and it's kind of like an alternate warped world that's similar but very different at the same time. One of the main conflicts in the series is that our main character Alice has a pretty big crush on this slightly older guy who her sister ends up starting to date, and when her sister ends up getting pulled into the darkness and being taken over by the darkness that's trying to consume her, they are both trying to work to bring her back and bring her back to the light. And I really enjoyed this series. It was fun. I read it a long time ago and it was just really good. It's only 7 volumes, so if you're not looking for something that's a big commitment, this is one of the ones that you might want to take a look at. The next manga that I'm going to recommend is Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya, and this is one of those series that actually got me into manga in the first place. I really loved it. Toru is the sweetest character ever, and this is a harem, a reverse harem to be specific, in which all of the characters, all the guys, for the most part, are these zodiac characters and they can transform, and it's really interesting, really funny. There's a whole bunch of different characters. There is a core cast they're very different characters, and it's very fun to watch them interact and deal with the issue, the fact that Toru is a girl who's lost both of her parents, and these zodiac guys are taking her in so that she doesn't have to live in the woods where an avalanche nearly killed her. And it's just, there's all these twists and turns and heartache as they deal with the family head of the that the guys have to deal with, who is kind of a jerk. And this is just a really, really great series. It is also complete. It's a bit longer. It's 23 volumes, but it's one of those that it touches your heart, and you can't help but be happy and enjoy it. The next manga that I'm going to recommend is in the science fiction genre, and that is Chobits. And Chobits was created by the group Clamp, and it is a series, I think it's only 7 volumes. I really enjoyed it. It follows a animatronic girl she's a robot, but she looks humanoid. Her name is Chi, and she's very different from all of the other robots like her. She was actually a special creation, and all of a sudden Hideki stumbles upon her, and they pretty much go on an adventure as she starts to learn and realize that she might not be like others. And she also starts to question a lot of things about the world. She's very childlike, and it's really an enjoyable read. And it makes you question various different things. And it's part of the reason why I'm so interested in reading Alex and Ada as well, because I did love Chobits so much. And it's a really interesting series. It makes you think, and it's not too long, so it's fun. The next manga that I'm going to recommend is Kamisama Hajimemashita, which is also known as Kamisama Kiss, and that is by Julieta Suzuki, and it is such a great series. It's been running for a while now. It is still ongoing, so all the previous manga that I've recommended so far, they are all complete. This is the first one that is actually still going. It is pretty much about a girl named Nanami Momozono, and she is kind of abandoned by her father with all of his debts, and she ends up stumbling upon a shrine where she ends up becoming the shrine god. It's really interesting as we get to see her come into this role and deal with being a god and all of the power that she now has, but she's still learning and just still dealing with actually being in high school. And it's just a really interesting series, and you get all these different sort of gods that are appearing. There is the Kitsune, there are so many others. It's just nonstop, but it's really, really great. There's a whole bunch of characters, and sometimes you wish you get to see more of them, but it's a massive series, so it's something that you do have to really invest in, because it is like 16 volumes and still going. And it might actually be more than that already. But it's really, really fun. And I would say if you still really like it after like the 3rd volume or so, you're gonna be really into it. The first volume isn't the best representation of what it becomes, but it does give you an introduction to this world, and it's just really a fun world that's very different from what you usually see, but it still does have inklings of the normal world within it. The final manga that I'm going to mention is probably my favorite, and that is Orange by Ichigo Takano, and it is really good. This is a romance, but it is told in a very interesting way, where we're actually in the future and we know that something is going to happen to the guy that the main character likes, but we don't quite know in the beginning. We know that it's disastrous and that he's no longer with the group, but we don't know exactly what happens. And we kind of learn as we're going through, because there is this, it's like magical realism, because there's a time travel element where she's actually writing to herself in her past, giving her hints and clues about what she needs to do to make sure, to try to make sure that the guy that they like and have brought into their group manages to survive instead of dying. And it's just really, really interesting, and it kind of just grips you from the very start. It's short, it is still ongoing. There's only 5 volumes so far, and it is really, really good. I definitely recommend that you go check it out. Like I said, it is like magical realism. For the most part, it's just very realistic, but there are certain elements where it's just like, oh, this is a little bit strange because, oh yeah, she's reading a note from herself in the future. So those are my manga recommendations, and if you have any manga recommendations, why don't you let me know down below. I'm always looking for new things to read, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.